What is up, you guys? This is JP, and in this video, I'm going to give you advice on how to improve your technique. Exercise technique is kind of, I don't want to say it's like a lost art in fitness, but it's kind of something that can quickly get buried between either more technical stuff or just more of the more popular topics in exercise science. You probably hear, and again, I'm not saying I don't contribute to this problem, but you probably hear a lot of talks about volume, frequency, how heavy you should lift. But again, one of the most important aspects to lifting more weight, staying healthy, and again, indirectly adding more muscle is to have good technique in regards to your lifts. If you have poor technique, again, it's gonna lead to a lot of issues. It might not be the most glamorous thing, but again, working on technique is just something that quickly can be forgotten in regards to working on other parts of, exercise in regards to whatever your goals are. And I know that this happened with me. I would focus on how much should I do in the gym? How long should I work out? How hard should I train? For a long time, those topics got a lot more of my attention, whereas technique kind of took, I try to do my technique in the actual working sets, which one isn't the best. You should have some sets devoted to technique, maybe count those as your warm-up sets. But in regards to that, technique should be a factor for you. So in my experience coaching, there's something that I find very common in regards to people just starting out or even intermediate lifters, and I do this myself too, and that is rushing through your sets. A very common thing for people to do is to start a set. It could be either squats, it could be bench press, deadlift, overhead press. It doesn't matter what it is, but people almost tend to lift, not everyone, but a lot of people tend to lift with some form of anxiety almost when they're lifting. They don't take their time with setup, they rush. So instead of taking things in a very systematic approach, which is what I kind of preach and what I teach the people that I train, you wanna almost look like a robot when you lift. So instead of taking this in a systematic approach, I tend to find that a lot of people wanna hurry up and get underneath the bar, especially for like a squat. They wanna hurry up and get underneath the bar. They wanna hurry up and unrack it, and they wanna hurry up and start to lift. And this isn't the mindset you should take in regards to training. Again, this can, one, decrease your stability. So if you're unracking the bar on a squat really fast, you're gonna probably walk out a lot more wobbly. You're not gonna get as good of a setup. So again, you're just gonna be not as stable. If you're not as stable, you can increase the odds that you end up injuring yourself, but you can also increase the odds that you just don't lift as much for whatever rep you're doing. I'm sure a lot of you who test 1 rep maxes end up trying a 1 rep max, and you're almost there, you're almost about to get it, but something stops you from getting it, and you have to either bail with the weight or you just have your spotter help you out. So it could be something in that sense where you just don't end up getting the results you want from the lift. And again, that could be due to you rushing. And that's kind of like a light case scenario in something bad happening. If you rush too much, I'm sure all of you guys have seen fail videos where someone unracks something and they end up, something terrible happens, they get a horrible injury. It could even be a career-ending injury. But again, it all comes down to rushing. So what I would recommend you guys do is just take things in a systematic approach. If you have to, what I would do is go very, very, very slow. Start to slow things down. So again, we're gonna work with the squat example for this video. Is start doing everything slow, start whatever your setup is, record yourself when you start the setup too. The reason being is that you can watch the recording back and say, okay, how am I doing this? What foot am I setting forth first for the squat? What foot am I setting next? When do I set my hands up? How do I get under the bar? When am I bracing and getting tight? Doing things in this very systematic approach very slowly, again, will help you get used to it and your nervous system get used to it, so you do the same thing every time. I have a couple people that I work with that I have to correct them constantly because they always want to do a different setup every single time. They'll put a little bit wider grip one session, and then the next session they'll do a little bit more narrow grip. One session they'll do thumbs over, one session they'll do thumbs around. So it's a constant changing of form from one session to the next. So essentially, when you look at or compare every single time you do the squat or any exercise, it should look the same. So you shouldn't have different setups. So again, so that would be my first tip for this, is do everything slow and be very systematic, record it and see, you know, how it feels over time. If you want to make adjustments, make one adjustment at a time. So don't try to make a bunch of adjustments at a time. The next tip I would give for slowing things down and not rushing it specifically goes to the eccentric portion of the lift on the squat or any lift, or the negative portion for those of you who don't know what eccentric means. And this is where people tend to rush it too. Don't dive bomb. Now, for advanced lifters, if you know what you're doing, you can kind of go a little faster on the eccentric if it falls within your rule set for powerlifting, or if it's just for your regular gym lifts, you can. But again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't do it. But what I recommend is for you is to control the negative or control the eccentric. Again, what happens is when you dive bomb a squat or you dive bomb any lift, it could be a bench press, one, and this might sound trivial, but it kind of delegitimizes the lift depending on the lift. And for example, the bench press is one. If you're doing a bench press and you're bouncing the bar off your chest, I'm sure you're not gonna really count that fully in your head. Again, it just doesn't, I mean, at what point do you count a lift and do you not count a lift? And again, that's not even focusing on the injury risk that comes with. But with this squat, you know, you could actually go fast on the negative and the lift still count, but there still are consequences of you going too fast. As one, you lose control again, and that can decrease performance. If you dive bomb in a squat, your hips might start to rise, the bar might start to go forward and backwards when looking at it from the side. You might have one side push more than the other. So again, in regards to performance, dive bombing might not always help you. Secondly, again, we go back to injury risk. If you dive bomb it, you might not be able to get the weight all the way up, and then you might end up in a scenario where if you don't have a spotter, you end up getting stuck under the load, and there's a lot of other issues that come with that. But again, that would be my other tip on taking things a little bit more slowly. So again, overall, I just recommend you slow things down, don't rush it, take things in a very systematic approach. So if you're trying to hurry up and get to the set, you know, get from point A to point B. If you're having that mindset, you're having the wrong mindset. You need to think about, okay, what am I doing at this moment in time? I'm setting up my feet. I'm putting my hands onto the bar. I'm unracking the bar. I'm taking a few steps back. You know, I'm getting set before I go into the lowering or the eccentric, okay? I'm controlling the weight to the negative. I'm hitting proper depth, and then I'm coming out of the hole, and then I'm finishing my lockout. You should kind of be thinking of that when you're doing the squat and not just rushing it. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.